Good afternoon, fellow writers, friends, and parents. Welcome to the May 2022 edition of the Author Showcase Series, a virtual experience of the South Florida Writers Association. We are a nonprofit membership organization whose mission is to promote literary arts and support writers. Visit our website, www.southfloridawriters.org, for more information about our programs such as this, our membership benefits, and videos of other Showcase Series editions, and how you can be a part of this. Now, if you're wondering why the premiere showing of this showcase is at 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon instead of our usual third Saturday of the month evening schedule, it is because the live book launch and signing by our featured author is simultaneously being held in person at the Sweet Haven Books at College Square, Historic Railroad Village in Miami, Florida. I'm Evelyn Benson, host and producer of the videos for the Author Showcase series, and I will be introducing our featured author today, Mr. Figg, who will discuss his latest book, Papete's Backyard, Food Chain Adventure. Inspired by childhood memories, this book by Mr. Figg's little fun adventure focuses on 5 kids who love to play in their grandfather's backyard located in Homestead, Florida, which is a garden that is home to many animals living among Florida and Caribbean plant life. Through playing, make-believe, and interacting with the garden's inhabitants, the children learn about food chains and a little about life cycles. Mr. Figg is a children's author from South Florida. He is a former high school teacher of language arts and journalism. Prior to his transition to being a children's author, Mr. Figg used to write online articles with multiple publications, including Sports Blog Nation, which is associated with USA Today, Bleacher Report, and Yahoo, among others. After walking the writer's path of discovery, Mr. Figg followed his passion for fantasy, adventure, and light science fiction into the world of children's writing. His first book, Orange Orangutan, was published in 2019, and his second book, A World of Candy, was released in 2020. For more information about the author and his books, visit his website, www.mrfigg.com. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for author Mr. Figg.
Welcome parents, kids, and everyone watching the Author Showcase and this virtual version of my book launch for Papete's Backyard, Food Chain Adventure. I am Mr. Figg, a children's author from South Florida. I have 2 previous books, my picture books, Orange Orangutan and A World of Candy. With my stories, whether it is an adventure in a backyard or set in fantasy, I like to take readers away from the everyday world. Along the way, we'll learn a lesson or 2. Now to my new book, Papete's Backyard, Food Chain Adventure. This is my 3rd book. Other than my first book, I consider this a book of firsts. It is my first chapter book, my first potential series, and the first time that I have written a book with multiple languages in it. It has illustrations among the text and is recommended for ages 8 and up. The story for the book is inspired by my experiences of family members and I playing in our grandfather's yard in Homestead, Florida, when we were kids. Before I start about the book, I'd like to give thanks to the people that were part of making it happen, the people that are behind the scenes. First, thank you to the illustrator, the very talented Susan Massey McClellan. This is the third book we have worked on together. My next set of thanks goes to the editing and translation team for the two versions of the book. The book is both written mostly in English, but one version having translated lines in Haitian Creole and the other having lines in Spanish. For Haitian Creole, I thank Bernard St. Joy. For Spanish, I thank Jose Luis Paraga. For the editing that brought everything together, I thank Beverly Malassi Haig. And the final and most important thanks for me goes to my La Forest family tree for the chance to include the patriarch of our family, Fritz Papete La Forest, as one of the characters in this book and for who the title is named. Now to the story. This story is a little fun adventure about 5 kids: Joby, Renaud, Wiki, Donnie, and Josiane. They love to play in the backyard of their grandfather's home. The backyard is a garden that is home to many animals living among many types of Florida and Caribbean plant life. In this garden, the kids find it easy to play games like make-believe adventures, because that's what kids should always do, play and have your adventures in the backyard. The kids also learn a little bit about gardening from their grandfather, Papete. By spending time around the garden's animals and being taught things by their grandfather, the kids learn about food chains and a little tiny bit about life cycles. In the real childhood that my relatives and I had playing in my grandfather's backyard, we would play all the time in many ways, whether adventures, fantasy, and anything else in our own little world away from the grown-ups. The backyard was filled with so many plants and animals because my grandfather and grandmother loved to garden. And being like so many South Florida people who are either from the Caribbean or Hispanic backgrounds, they planted tropical life. A good description of this comes from one of my cousins. Now, this is a cousin who, like me, is also a creative, and he's actually an entertainer that's actually in the New York, New Jersey area. He actually goes under the name Arake, which is actually spelled Irocaye. That's his professional name. But he wanted me to make sure that I specified this part about our backyard. So I'll quote him in what he described. That backyard looked like a mini jungle filled with all sorts of tropical fruits: sugarcane, pineapples, limes, oranges, mangoes, many other fruits, and some vegetables as well. And he remembered even the black-eyed peas that our grandmother, who we affectionately knew as Manga, would use to make her rice and beans. That's how he remembers it greatly. That's how we all remembered it. It was the ultimate place for a kid to play in. An additional item related to that garden was that some of the ingredients were also used to make a delicious porridge-like Haitian drink known as akasa. This drink is made from corn flour, star anise, cinnamon, plant-based or evaporated milk, sugar or sugar cane, vanilla extract, and or your choice of other flavors. My grandfather particularly often used lemon peel as an extra at times. You talk to any Haitian kid, they know what akasa is. These were the many things that we enjoyed from that backyard. This story and the kids are created from bits and pieces from the time spent in that backyard. And the only character that is actually based on the real person or directly based on the real person is the grandfather in the story, Papete. All of the other kids are what you call composite characters, where they take a little bit of each of the real kids that influence this story and they're built into these characters. Now I will read a couple of parts from the story, and I will include the translated lines in both Haitian Creole and Spanish. However, please bear with me since I am very limited in both languages. So we'll start. Joby, where'd he go? Reno asked, his eyes searching along the ground. I think around the orange tree, maybe into the mint bush, I shouted. Wiki, do you see him? I asked, still searching. No, that lizard is fast, Wiki answered, his head bobbing as he searched up and down the nearby trees. Suddenly, the lizard sprung out onto him. Ah, get him off me, Wiki screamed, falling backwards. Reno and I leaped to the rescue. I grabbed the lizard first, but let it go as it bit me. Ow! Got him, Reno yelled, raising his prize. He gripped it safely behind its head as it wiggled and snapped, trying to escape. Whew, he was a challenge, I said, catching my breath. That's no normal lizard, added Wiki, panting from running. He's got superpowers. Look at his colors. Dark fire red with yellow spots. They're like comic book colors. He's got to be the superhero of the lizard, figured Reno. Yeah, let's give him a superhero name like Super Amazing Lizard, I suggested. Wouldn't Super Duper Lizard be easier, responded Wiki. Yes, let's go with that, Reno agreed. Okay, Super Duper Lizard it is. Now let's get him into the fish tank with the rest of our lizard friends, I replied. After we put our grand catch away, we noticed our grandfather standing in front of the sugarcane stalks with his green garden fork in one hand and dull-bladed rusty machete in the other. We gathered around, as did Donnie and Josiane, running over in their bouncing diapers. Pappy, are you going to cut sugarcane for us today? I asked as he started to tap the stalks. Yes, or in Creole, oui, or in Spanish, sí. They are ready, he answered, tapping harder to cut nicks into the stalks. Yes, we cheered. Donnie, with a frown, pointed to bird droppings in the soil near the stalks and said, caca. Papete simply knelt and used his fork to mix it into the soil. No problem, it's good for sugarcane. Then imitated eating with his hands to his mouth. Food, or in Creole, manger, or in Spanish, alimento. It's food for sugarcane. In Creole, c'est manger pour cane. In Spanish, es alimento para la caña de azúcar. I all of a sudden remembered a lesson that we learned in the last school year. Pappy, is it like a food chain where everything eats? He said, yes, everything eats everything. In Creole, oui, tout bagay mange tout bagay. In Spanish, sí, todo se come a todo. Yes, everything eats everything, as he pointed to the rest of his garden. We didn't understand, but Pappy always taught us something new. In this dynamic that the kids have with their grandfather, Pappy, this was the normal process for the kids. They held him in high regard, always trying to figure things out on their own, which they did a lot of times, but they would go to their grandfather to put everything together in their learning to have a full understanding. And this would continue all the time with everything. In the real life version of what my relatives and I would experience, this was the same thing we would go through. We would have our little adventures, discover something new, and we'd figure it out, but to get absolute full understanding of it, we would run to our grandfather and also to our grandmother, and they would explain how things worked in the garden. The next and final excerpt I'll read is a little later in the story. This next part occurs after Super Duper Lizard ran into another animal in the garden. And actually, Super Duper Lizard is no longer part of the story at this point. So it's now this other character. It was a spider that the kids named Arrow the Magic Spider, because when they first saw Arrow, they saw the spider web. It was covered with dew in the morning, so it looked like a magical spider web to them. So the kids at this point are now focused on Arrow because there has been some changes in Arrow's spider web from when they first saw it. And definitely from when the last time they saw it as well. So it starts with Reno. What are those other sacks? And the one Arrow is making around himself now, asked Reno as he pointed. They look different than the ones with his food. I guess so, I shrugged my shoulders. Let's go in and ask Pappy. As we described what we saw, Pappy said, and I'll start with Creole, Arañen u apetiti. Now Spanish. Tu araña está teniendo bebés. Now in English, your spider is having babies, as he mentioned with his hands over his stomach to create an invisible belly. Babies, so Arrow's a mommy, I answered. And then from there, Joby mentioned hearing that some mother spiders offer themselves as food for their new babies. This is something that does happen among several species of spiders. And to this, Pappy responds, yes, everything eats everything. He says that again. Yes, everything eats everything. In Creole again, oui, tout bagay mange tout bagay. Or in Spanish, sí, todo se come a todo. Yes, everything eats everything, he answered and added, like your food chain, nothing lasts forever. And he added this other important line, everything becomes part of something else. In Creole, tout bagay vignon pati nan yon lot bagay. In Spanish, todo pasa a formar parte de algo más. I'll repeat all of that again. Everything becomes part of something else. Tout bagay vignon pati nan yan lot bagay. Todo pasa a formar parte de algo más. The kids get a little more information to now understand that while parts of the food chain can be tough, there is the life-sustaining part involving everything becoming a part of something else. This is how the world goes. The story continues through the process of a food chain in this yard where one thing leads to the next and to the next, becoming part of something else until the chain and cycle starts over and repeats again. At the end of the story, the food chain is complete, but it's understood that it will once again start again. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this book is recommended for ages 8 and up. Younger readers can read it if they are up to the reading level. And also if they have an understanding of the science behind food chains. No matter the case, if the child's under the age of 8, and even if they are 8, parental guidance is always suggested because this is a very strong matter in the science field and learning with the food chain and life cycles. I hope you all enjoy the story. As I close, to get a copy of Pappy's Backyard Food Chain Adventure or any of my previous books, if you are in South Florida, you can find them at Books and Books by visiting their stores, or you can visit another community bookstore known as Sweet Haven Books. You can also find them at Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Amazon, and other participating bookstores and vendors. You can visit my website, which you'll see in a slide at the end of this video, and there you will be able to find out information about other stores and other vendors that carry my books. And if you want to know more about myself, along with visiting my website, you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My account on both of those platforms is at Real Mr. Figg. It's spelled real, R-E-A-L, Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R, Figg, F-I-G-G, Real Mr. Figg. And of note, I usually follow everyone back because I like people, and hopefully you all like my work. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And kids, always remember this important thing. Always remember to read a book. You know why? Because it makes your brain stronger.